At the end of every year, we do a look back at the season. However, this time I'm going to do a look back on the whole decade. Now, the last time I did one of these, I typed it all out, which just goes to show how much has changed in 10 years. So let's have a look at the decade of rallying, from 2010 to 2019. In 2010, rallying in WA and the world shifted up a gear, pardon the pun, and mostly that was driven by the rise of social media and the prominence of smartphones. And that would certainly increase traffic to Facebook and YouTube, and rallying would feature in that, along with Kenny from the Block and his Gymkhana videos. 5 rallies would decide the 2010 WA Rally Championship, and there were some new names coming forth. Those would end up being inscribed in the books as the winners. Round 1 was the Donnelly rally, which was run in March, uncharacteristically as it normally ran in September or August. The challenge though would start early. Despite the packed calendar at the start of the season, the Experts Cup rally towards the end of the season actually had 40 entries. And after that 4th round, the points were tight, both in 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, which meant the Safari rally at the end of the year would be the decider. That would happen quite a few times during the decade. And after 9 special stages, only 16 of the original 35 cars at that particular rally finished. Just shows how much of a rough rally that was back then. And out of those, it was the Wilds, brother and sister, Tom and Nerily, that would win the state championship. Come 2011, and we'd hear more from Tom Wild. He went ahead and won the Australian Rally Challenge for juniors. The championship had 5 rounds as it had previously the year before. However, there were some change in the wind for clubmen. There were some proposals for 2012 that were coming, and basically it had to do with abolishing pace notes and keeping the rallies to a more affordable, more compact level. Over that 5-round championship in 2011, it was Lee Hines and Stuart Percival that will win the outright championship in their left-hand drive orange WRX. Come 2012, the proposed rules from 2011 had great effect in the clubmen. The entry numbers actually increased quite dramatically. In 2012, history was also created again by Tom Wild. This time, he actually won the Forest Rally outright. It was the first time that a West Australian had actually won the Forest Rally since Rob Herridge had done it in 1992. Another name would show prominence during that year, and it was Dylan King in his Mark II Ford Escort. He actually won the 2-wheel drive series, and he was the youngest competitor to do so. Winning the state championship outright was Alex Stone and Hannah Drury in their WRX. 2013, and the Premier Category Australian Rally Championship was a 2-wheel drive. So it was ironic that at the Forest Rally that year, privateers in the WA State Championship actually had faster, more powerful cars than the outright category of ARC. Tom Wild's speed hadn't gone unnoticed, and he was actually picked up as a works driver to drive for Renault. He drove a left-hand drive Renault Clio and had some mixed results during the year, getting on the podium. However, at times an electrical problem hampered the car. Come the end of the season and the Safari Rally, and I'd taken over as clerk of course. At that event, car 1 was Alex Stone and Hannah Drury, and 5 kilometres into stage 1 they rolled their car. Not the most auspicious start to being the clerk of course, and of course not real good for Alex and Hannah either. Luckily neither of them were hurt. That year the championship went to Lee Hines and Stuart Percival in their WRX. 2014, and almost midway through the decade. It was very memorable for a number of reasons, not least was the Forest Rally celebrated its 30th anniversary. During that year, the Light Car Club had staged somewhat of a coup. They'd managed to get hands-on access to the tree plantation that we once knew as Bunnings, the famous Jumps and Water Splash from Rally Australia. The event ran on the June long weekend and was known as the Newmont Boddington Rally. It was the first time that rally cars had been over the Jumps and Water Splash and used those stages since 2006. Come the end of the season, and I was at the helm for the 2nd year in a row running the Safari Rally. Everything looked good to go when we made history for all the wrong reasons. On the very first stage, cars 4 and car 5 crashed. Now they crashed at separate points in the stage about 5 kilometres apart, and unfortunately both crews needed medical attention. It was the first time ever on a rally that two consecutive cars had crashed at separate points on the same stage. And basically what ensued was a bit of a political struggle between ambulance services, the rescue helicopter and the fire brigade. Thankfully, out of all that, the drivers Brad Markovic and Lee Hines made a full recovery. That rally would also be the decider for the 2014 State Championship. It was a shocked Doug Tostovan and Tammy Adams that were actually at the finish when they were told the news that they'd won. They'd basically sidestepped all the drama of the day and won the rally and the series. The early part of the 2015 season is probably likely to be remembered as one of the darkest in WA rally history. Unfortunately, at the Donnelly rally, a freak accident killed one spectator and injured two others. It was something that nobody had ever envisaged and hoped it would never happen again. It sent serious shockwaves through the sport and there were some knock-on effects. The next rally, the Boddington rally, had to be cancelled because the owners of the plantation cited Donnelly rally and not wanting to have the same dramas. The end of the season in the Safari Rally would also be the decider for the championship again. Surprise, surprise. For the third time in a row, I was at the helm as clerk of course, and we ran the event wanting to go out on a high note. We actually did very well for entries with 47 entries. We surpassed Boddington Rally the previous year by one and set the highest for the decade. The weather was very hot. It was almost 40 degrees on that day, and out of that 47 entries, the field was level to about 50% by the rally's end. Brad Markovic and Glenn McNeil exercised their demons from 2014 and won the 50th Safari Rally. Gary Whittle, however, would go on to win the state championship for the year. 2016 and rallying would be in the spotlight again, this time particularly in social media. It was actually the Forest Rally, the first rally of the year, where it was Sean Keating and Caleb Cash Ash who made the headlines. They'd swapped their Nissan Silvia for a WRX, although Sean hadn't changed any of his hard driving style. On one particular corner on one stage, they went off the road and down a steep embankment, rolling their WRX at very high speed. The two of them walked away from the crash, thankfully. However, they documented their aftermath with a smartphone and made a video. The video went viral and had hundreds of thousands of views on both Facebook and YouTube. I'll put a link to their entertaining video somewhere, which really does demonstrate rally safety quite well. Apart from the Forest Rally, there were some other major changes in the championship that year. After the effects of Donnelly the previous year, the rally was abandoned and a new rally, the Karri Rally, was run out of Manjimup as round 2. The other major change was to the Boddington Rally. Unfortunately, there still wasn't any access allowed to the old Bunnings plantation, so effectively for the rest of the decade, those roads were out. Instead, the car club worked together with the locals in the area and got onto some private tree plantations. They still put together a rally which was quite good. Effectively, it was brand new. And as history would repeat itself, the Safari Rally at the end of the year would be the championship decider again. It was a tough battle between a number of parties, and it would be Dylan King and Abby Hayes that will win in their WRX, sealing the deal. 2017 was the year of the little engine that could. It will be remembered because a David and Goliath battle developed that ended up with Tom Wilde and Matty Kirkhouse doing something that everyone thought near on impossible. They won the 2017 State Rally Championship in a two-wheel drive Honda Civic. Yes, that's right, a two-wheel drive, non-turbocharged 1990s Honda Civic won the State Rally Championship against four-wheel drive turbo cars. The last time that a two-wheel drive car had won the State Rally Championship was in 1992, so 25 years or quarter of a century earlier. Oh, and also it was the first time this decade that a non-Subaru, so it wasn't a WRX, that had won the State Rally Championship as well. 2018 was the year the calendar was shaken and stirred. Basically, there was a lot of movement between rallies and dates during the year, particularly in the planning stages, and effectively what happened in the end was the Experts Cup moved to September and the Kirup Stages Rally moved to July. On top of all that, the Darling 200 Rally that was slated to run later in the year had to be cancelled due to controlled burns and fire. Now, given the situation that's going on in the eastern states at the moment, well, it's totally understandable why the rally could be cancelled during fires. Out of all that, the Light Car Club at the end of the year ran a standalone rally sprint to finish off the year. The 2018 winner was John O'Dowd in, you guessed it, a WRX. 2019 and the end of the decade. And with it, a new generation of rally cars. John O'Dowd and Tony Fever had acquired an R5 Skoda Fabia. Now, if you're not sure what an R5 car is, I'll put a link somewhere here to a video I've done on AP4 and R5 cars. Despite how advanced the R5 cars were, it was ironic that at the Forest Rally, Tom Wilde, a name that we've heard before, was actually leading the event in the WRX that John O'Dowd had won in previously. If not for a turbo trouble and a flat tyre on the last day, Tom and girlfriend Maddie would have won the rally. Instead, John and Tony won the rally, and it's something that they would continue to do for every one they entered in WA in 2019. Aside from the R5 car and the debate that provoked, there were some other changes as well, most notably to the Darling 200. It changed date from November, when it was usually very hot and dusty, to September, and the results were dramatic. On top of that, the rally was also brought on stream as a full round of the WARC rather than just a two-wheel drive and clubman-only rally. The Experts Cup Rally too moved again. This time September wasn't late enough in the year and it ran in October as the final round of the championship. John O'Dowd and Tony Fever would win the state championship for 2019. Thanks very much for watching the coverage of the last 10 years of rallying. Please like, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. And I'll catch you again soon. Happy New Year.